Hey Cancer, welcome to your timeless reading. I trust that you'll get here when you need this message. And as always, use your discernment when listening to tarot readings because you know your life and your situation better than anyone else. These are general readings, which means I'm looking more at like patterns, underlying beliefs, just general vibe of what's going on for you rather than like specifically career or love, nor am I here to tell you what will happen or what you should do. It's meant more as confirmation and or guidance because I believe you have free will and the future isn't set in stone. Whoops. But we'll see what comes up for you. Interesting already. I'm pulling from the movie tarot, which my friend from film school gave me. And I'm also pulling from the Movie Genius playing card deck, which is not a tarot deck or an oracle deck. It's just some filmmakers. And so since we're on the movie theme, I thought it'd be fun to use it like an oracle deck. And then what else? Cancer. Oh, yeah. Even though I love movies, I'm like a film buff who has like a weird movie vocabulary. So like I haven't necessarily seen all the references in this deck. So if you have any insights, let me know. Okay, Cancer, Jesus. No! Okay, let's get more. I mean, I pulled the 3 of Swords and the 9 of Swords, which I guess we'll figure out. Whoa, okay. Oh, wow, Jesus. Alright. Look, the messages are what they are, and hopefully this one doesn't resonate with you. I'm a Cancer sun, so I'm like, oh, geez. But you know what? Sometimes we have to handle the truth, and sometimes that's just what we're at in our lives, is a 3 of Swords, 5 of Cups moment, and maybe just kind of like not denying it is the way forward. I mean, it might not be your message, but okay. The deck is like, I'm done. Okay, I'm done, it says. And let's pull a movie person. Okay. Oh, Kurosawa. Okay, this is a person whose movies I have seen. And it kind of helps. Okay. So, we got the Moon. We got King of Cups. Oh, David Bowie in Labyrinth. King of Cups, Bill Murray in Lost in Translation. Queen of Wands, Katniss, The Hunger Games. 5 of Cups. Knight of Cups, Wesley, The Princess Bride. Page of Cups, I actually don't know him. Let's see what that is. Page of Cups. Who is he? Oh, Joseph Fiennes in Shakespeare in Love. Cute. I want to rewatch that. That's a great movie. I don't remember it too well. The Hierophant. Kurosawa. I'm going to talk about the movie Ikiru. 4 of Swords, 3 of Swords, 9 of Swords. So, okay, great. So there's this movie called Ikiru, which I believe means to live, and it's Kurosawa, and it kind of helps to explain this 9 of Swords and this 3 of Swords energy. Eesh, I hope that this isn't true for us, but it's a movie about a guy who gets cancer and like realizes he only has like a limited time to live. And like because he has that epiphany, he like works for like a bureaucratic like government institution that like never gets anything done. And he's like, wait, why do we never get anything done here? Like, that's crazy. Like, we have this job, we have this opportunity to help the community, and we don't do it. We just like send papers back and forth to one another. Like, whose responsibility is this, is basically what the character asks. Like, someone has to get this done. So he gets it in his mind that he wants to build a park for the community. And the movie is, like, really about this man experiencing life for the first time in his life at the end of his life and kind of having that, like, awakening of, like, I have I want to have a purpose. I want, like, to have made a meaning or a mark on the world, and, like, I want to, like, stop making excuses and stop just, like, kind of going with the status quo and doing things, like, just the way things are done, or, like, okay, he wants to stop letting the institution, the bureaucratic institution, could get the best of him, so he kind of takes it, like, initiative upon his own to, like, go and make it happen. Whoa. It's a really beautiful movie. Kind of, like, has Groundhog Day vibes, I think, to me, or at least I remember it did, which was, like, kind of the notion and the message of, like, make every day count, and, like, also, like, you have the power to make a difference by how you treat others, and how, like, kind of, like, that's our legacy, is the way we impact the people around us in, like, our immediate environment, and that's how we can make a difference. But, you know, that guy did get cancer, and we also have the Five of Cups energy, so, like, look, Cancer, I don't want to say us Cancers are getting cancer, oh my god, no, but there's, like, a lot of anxiety, there's, like, a lot of heartbreak, there's, like, this Five of Cups energy, and, like, I guess I will share that, like, in my own life, my family recently had to, like, we had to lose our dog, and the dog wasn't that old, but the dog was sick, and, it was, I mean, I'm, like, okay right now, I'm, like, able to give this reading, but it's, like, really emotional, it's, like, definitely a heartbreak, it's definitely something that, like, we're all grieving, and I think, like, in the heartbreak, there's also kind of this, like, senselessness to it, for some people, it's, like, so I'll stop making it about my dog, but, like, or, like, our family's dog, but, like, make it about just these moments in life that, like, kind of come out of left field that are just really horrible, right? And there's kind of not, like, I think part of what can make it, like, this Nine of Swords energy worse is that senselessness, or, like, the feeling of, like, it doesn't add up, or, like, it doesn't, like, it's hard to create, sometimes it's hard in life to create a positive narrative around a really tragic event in our lives. Sometimes it's hard to make sense of why senseless things happen, and that's just a little bit of what I'm getting here for us, Cancer. And this is Act 1 of our story, so, like, I think that the positive news is that we have more to go, like, I'm letting us start here in this darkness, because then we can move towards the light, right? But I think I talked about Ikiru, the movie, and that was, this is a little bit maybe of making lemons out of lemonade, but sometimes I think it feels like we can't do anything with, like, quote-unquote lemons, right? Like, it feels like, I just think it's important to acknowledge, Cancer, that, like, sometimes things in life happen that the truth is, like, they will just never be okay. It'll just never be okay that certain things happened. And it's, sometimes we can't make lemons into lemonade because the lemons were rotten. And, which is weirdly contradictory to what I was talking about here. But I think that this movie goes to show the human desire to make meaning, and the human desire to make connection, and the human desire to make a difference, and our kind of, like, natural inclination to want to kind of, like, have some sense of control over the narrative of our lives and of our perception of the world, if that makes any sense, right? So, like, this guy is taking his cancer and turning it into an opportunity to make a difference. But I do feel like sometimes there are things that happen where it's like nothing really good came of that. I can think of other times in my life where there have been just these really tragic things that have happened where it's like nothing really good came of that. Nothing that I can see, nothing that I can understand, nothing that I can, like, identify, nothing that I'm even willing to Yeah. And, like, that's, like, look, this is dark. We should probably move on. But I think it's important, Cancer, to acknowledge that if we're in one of these, like, dark nights of the soul, if we're experiencing a heartbreak, if we're experiencing grief, if it's causing us to have anxiety and to kind of, like, have an existential crisis and to wonder, like, why, like, if there's a God, or, like, why this could happen, or, like, how can we believe in, like, maybe even what we used to believe in when maybe we've been proven, like, some evidence to the contrary, right? I mean, this could just be, like, someone we really loved and trust, like, betrays us, you know? And kind of, like, I think that Nine of Swords energy I'm picking up is just, like, if someone I love and trusted betrayed me, then, like, we have, like, the grief and the heartbreak of that, but then we also have the kind of, like, can I trust myself anymore because I trusted this person and, like, I didn't, you know, see this coming. So it definitely feels a little bit like being blindsided, and just a general, like, the tragicness of it. I mean, that's how I feel about, like, our dog. Like, just, it's tragic, and there's just not, like, a lot of, like, there's the good memories, sure, but there's just a lot of, like, pain and grief and, like, kind of, I think the lament of, like, I really can't go back and fix this thing. Like, some things I just can't make better. Oh my God, Cancer, I've been talking about that for a really long time. So let's move on. The Four of Swords, rest, recovery, like, really letting yourself have this moment to just process all of this stuff. Like, I'm not saying necessarily that we're going to be able to make meaning out of, you know, the tragedies in our life, but it does feel like sometimes we need to just take a time out. And, you know, I'm kind of called to the Knight of Cups a little bit, which is, like, Wesley saying, death cannot stop true love, it can only delay it for a little bit. So, delay it for a little while. So, it seems like, Cancer, basically, we've experienced some upset in our lives that, like, is just really nonsensical and hard to, like, process and grasp. And, like, it seems a little bit, like, I didn't pull the Tower, but it kind of feels a little bit like one of those things that really shakes our confidence and our foundation. And I just feel like with the conversation about Ikiru, I think it feels a little bit like we are trying to find meaning in this, even if we're having a really hard time. I mean, I am thinking of, like, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, which is literally a book about the Holocaust, and this man finding the meaning in life through, like, the most horrific of circumstances. So I feel like, yes, we're recovering from this, like, we are taking a time out. I feel like it's shaken our faith and our foundation. And it feels like whatever is happening, it just feels like kind of like it is hard to construct a narrative around it. But I feel like in a way we're not giving up on that. Even if, like, we can't make sense of the thing that happened, or, like, you know, even though, like, sometimes we experience, like, a loss that's just, like, really sad because it's, like, an innocent dog that was gone too soon, I think it's like, how can I let the love that I had for, you know, like, because, like, if the one thing I'll say with the Three of Swords is it's heartbreak, and, like, this is grief, and, like, generally we don't experience heartbreak and grief unless we loved, right? Like, this is kind of, in a way, the price of love. Even when we're betrayed by someone, like, we loved them, and that's why it hurts. So, like, I think that there is just a little bit of me kind of dredging up the idea that, like, this is really painful, but it's because you loved so much, and, like, because you have a big heart, and because you do have more love to give. Four of Swords, it's kind of like just having to, I just watched Sleepless in Seattle, so I think I feel called to talk about that. But, like, when he's on the phone with, like, the lady, he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna, like, get out of bed and I'm going to breathe, and then I'm going to do it the next day, and I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to remind myself to breathe, and I'm going to keep doing that until one day I don't have to remind myself to breathe anymore and I'm just living my life. And like that's this Four of Swords energy to me, is that Sleepless in Seattle moment where it's like sometimes we just have to like get out of bed, breathe, and like let ourselves not expect more from ourselves than to just grieve and to just let ourselves move through this grief process. Sometimes that's where we're at. This is act 1, right? This is act 1 of the story. And then we have all these other cards. So like, let's talk about all these other cards. We have the Knight of Cups, Wesley. We have the Hierophant. We have the Page of Cups. We have the Queen of Wands. We have all these court cards. We have the King of Cups. And we have the Moon. So I think, interestingly, I'm the Knight of Cups, Wesley. I mean, if you think about Buttercup in The Princess Bride, Buttercup thinks that Wesley is dead, and she grieves him, and she's, like, really sad, and she says, I promise I will never love anyone ever again. And I feel like that's kind of where we're starting out, Cancer. But Wesley wasn't dead. He was alive. He just became a pirate, and death didn't stop true love. It just delayed it for a little bit. So with this Knight of Cups, I feel like as we move through this, like, just processing this grief and letting ourselves have this moment of just kind of, like, being a little distraught, being a little bit, like, heartbroken, I think that we start to see evidence that not all is lost and that there is a reason we're still alive, right? Because, like, if we're alive, then we have, So if we're still alive here on the planet, we still have a purpose. Like, there's still more to our story. And so I feel like the Knight of Cups, Wesley energy is kind of coming in to remind us of that and to kind of show us that not all is lost and that maybe there's kind of more to the story, like, than we were able to comprehend initially when we were just kind of in that grief state of mind. And that things have changed, yes, right? Like, he went from being a farm boy to a pirate, and so, like, you have changed too, Cancer. And I think that, like, part of what has happened and this like, grief has turned you into a different, like, kind of version of yourself. And, like, what I wanted to talk about, I mean, again, we're talking about making meaning out of things that, like, have no meaning, right? It's, like, kind of taking a nihilistic point of view and kind of creating a narrative around the impossible in a way, because we're here, we have purpose to our lives, and there's still a reason why our heart is beating even if our heart was broken, is what I'm trying to say with the Knight of Cups. And I feel like with the Hierophant, this is the Godfather, obviously, and I was thinking about how with the Godfather, this is honestly a movie that I am, like, not personally that excited about. I know that it's, like, a beloved American classic, and I know that it's, like, one of the top 100, if not the 100, like, the top film of all time, according to, like, Old White Men. But I feel like that's exactly why I don't like it, is because it's the Hierophant. Like, to me, this film represents, like, a certain type of, like, institutional belief. Like, it kind of, I don't dislike it for quote unquote celebrating violence. I just think it's boring and long, and, like, it's, like, about a bunch of, like, old white dudes, like, making some drug deals with each other, and, like, I don't care. Like, that's me personally. And so I'm bringing that into your reading, Cancer, because I feel like sometimes when we experience the depths of human emotion over here, and, like, when just kind of our like faith is shattered, I think we can kind of get a little bit of, like, that maverick point of view of having a little bit, like, less to lose. And I think kind of being willing to go against the system, and I think being willing to question things and, like, the way things are, and, like, why everyone does things the way they do them. So I have the cat running around in the back now, so that'll be a part of the reading too, if you can hear that pattering of feet. Okay, so anyway, I think the Hierophant is showing up to show us, Cancer, the ways that we've changed, right? There's, like, this change from like the farm boy innocence to the pirate, like worldly, like seen it all, like not afraid of danger or death anymore type of vibe. And the Hierophant, I feel like this is being willing to question other people's values, maybe even your own values. I think that there's just a little bit of like kind of a examining, and I mean, we talked about the Hierophant with Ikiru too, right? The bureaucracy was just sending papers to each department and no one was doing anything. And then that's like, I think this Hierophant in Ikiru, he was like, well, someone's got to do it. This is someone's department. And so I think the Hierophant, to me, particularly like with the Knight of Cups, it's sort of speaking of like, I think that in Act 2, you're like seeing like your devil may care attitude kind of like shine. I mean, also we got like Katniss, Queen of Wands energy. So I think there's a little bit of you just having nothing to lose and also questioning a lot and wanting to do things differently. And just because like everyone loves something or everyone does something a certain way doesn't mean that maybe it's right or that you believe in it anymore, or maybe it's even the thing that like was like the root cause of like this heartbreak that you've experienced, right? Like this could be related to an injustice. This could be seeing that things just didn't need to happen the way that they did, right? Or that this was preventable perhaps. Maybe there's just something you actually did learn here, even though it was like totally just like heartbreaking and like, you know, just very difficult, that it shaped you into seeing things a way that other people can't see because now you feel it in your bones, right? And so you're not afraid necessarily in the ways that you were before, especially like we got Katniss, Queen of Wands, the Hunger Games. Like, in the Hunger Games, she, like, her sister is gonna be, like, offered as a tribute, and she's like, no way, right? Like, I would rather die than see my sister die. Like, I have something that is more important to me than my own death. So, like, I feel like that's, like, with the Queen of Wands and with, like, all this energy that we're talking about, it's that, like, I don't want to say that, like, your trauma made you a superhero. I don't want to say that, like, the horrible things that have happened were turning the lemons into, like, your, like, you know, victory per se, because I think that there is sometimes just grief we carry with us where, like, it's always going to be something that's sad. I just want to, like, really state that I am not trying here to force us to like get over something. I think I'm more speaking to the fact that like the energy that like I'm picking up on in our reading is that you are changed by this, and in having been changed, I think that you have a certain quality about you now where you are willing to fight for what's right, or you are willing to defend the innocent. You are willing to kind of like there's just, I think it's like kind of the energy of like when we know something can't be made right, like the thing that happened can't be made right, but that we can still, again, like just have the impact that we can make with the rest of the time that we have left. And with Katniss, that feels like a little bit of the vibe as well, which is, okay, lucky the cat is in here now. She wreaks a lot of havoc. I understand. You might be wreaking havoc too, Cancer, with this Queen of Wands. I mean, she just is fearless. There's a certain fearlessness, because it's kind of like, if the worst has already happened, then there's nothing left to lose. That just keeps being what I get from a lot of these cards and from these messages that are coming up for you. It's just kind of, you're going for it. And I think you're also going for it in a way where it's like you might be seeking the amount of justice that is possible in a given situation, even if in ultimate terms it can't be made right. So that's like kind of your act. Let's call that your act 2. And then let us move into your act 3, which is the Moon, Labyrinth, the King of Cups, Bill Murray and Lost in Translation, and the Page of Cups, Joseph Fiennes in Shakespeare in Love, which I will watch again because I love that movie and it's been a really long time since I've seen it. So long that I'm not really quite sure how to reference it other than, I mean, the thing I do remember about the Page of Cups was like Gwyneth Paltrow in drag, which was really amazing and wonderful. And we also I'd just like to speak about the fact that we got all this water energy. I think this is like a little bit of Piscean energy. So it kind of feels to me like something just heartbreaking happens, and my like condolences and like my heart goes out to us for whatever heartbreak and grief we've been experiencing. But in that, from that, we're kind of reborn into a like more fearless version of ourselves. And not saying that's like good, but it's like I think we're just really determined to make an impact with what we can do. And we're kind of like trailblazing now, because what difference does it make? So with the moon and then these two cups energies, I feel like this kind of comes to a point where maybe it feels like it has a lot to do with emotions. And because like I feel like with the Queen of Wands energy in Katniss, like she's a little bit cold in the way like a emergency technician, like an EMT, is cold, which is to say detached. Like there's a certain like lack of feeling because the feelings are too intense to actually have, and like you need to be above them to be able to like go and do all the like crazy stuff you're doing, maybe against the Hierophant, right? Or like tearing down whatever system or whatever it is, right? Whatever you're like kind of up against with this institution. So I feel like this Katniss energy to me feels a little bit like being a badass, yes, but like maybe being a badass at what cost? And like that's kind of, I think, the question that I feel like is coming up here with like the moon and the Page of Cups and the King of Cups. Like the moon is about our subconscious beliefs. So a lot of people talk about it, especially this card, it feels like a lot to do with illusions, because like the whole movie Labyrinth is about illusions and how things are not what they seem. But also with the subconscious mind, I think a lot about how like that can be where some of our shadow aspects are, and like sometimes that can be where maybe some remaining grief is, and like it can also be just, there's like a lot here. There's a lot in the moon, and there's a lot in Labyrinth too with David Bowie, where it feels like kind of like maybe getting a little bit like at some point a little bit like lost from your core self. I feel like there's like a need at some point to like kind of just return to like maybe actually like that older, like more innocent version of yourself before all of this happened. Not that you really can go back to like the before times, like even thinking about like the pandemic, right? Like that's changed us, certainly. The pandemic itself is certainly this type of energy, especially if we did lose people in the pandemic. It's definitely this. And it's like hard to make, it's like I think we've on some level normalized the pandemic, but I mean it's kind of crazy that there's a literal plague and that we're facing global warming. I mean, just like collectively this is like a little bit of a mood. And yes, that can make you quote unquote resilient, like what we've been talking about, and it can make you determined to go make the difference that you can go make. But I think with the moon showing up, it's like I think that there is a need to go back to the past in a way, like go back to who you used to be, or to like understand, especially with like the page, right? Like I think there's a certain like innocence that like has been lost. And I think that it's kind of like what I'm really picking, I've been hearing a lot about soul retrieval lately, and like just recently, especially after I've like kind of been experiencing my own heartbreak, and it feels like there's a little bit of a need to go retrieve that soul piece. Particularly Shakespeare in Love. I mean, I do have to rewatch it, but it's like it's like actors, and it's like actors are playful and imaginative, and there's kind of like a spirit of like appreciating the playful aspects of life and appreciating like the artistic like path and all of that. And with Shakespeare in Love and this Page of Cups, like just kind of, I feel like there's a need to return to it, and I don't know why, but you might like literally need to do a soul retrieval session, like especially with the moon going into your subconscious, figuring out where you like broke off from yourself. Kind of like, I feel like it's like you need to understand what was lost. And to the extent that you can, maybe you need to go get it back. And this is the third act, and I think that you have to do that for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it's, I don't know. I like honestly don't know. I mean, the moon is a mystery, but I do get that message that like even though you've been like going out and like conquering or whatever, or like kind of beating I mean, like, literally in the Hunger Games, she basically, like, gives a big F you to the system and, like, overcomes a lot of, like, their own expectations of her. But, like, also maybe, like, just, like, a healing. Like, you need to go heal. Like, you need to, like, truly heal. And I think the moon is speaking about, like, going into your own psyche and recovering that innocence, that playfulness, that, like, kind of like sense of like the love of life too, right? Like that you can't really just always be a warrior, that like you still need to let yourself have all of your feelings. You still need to let yourself, even maybe there's more to grieve, or maybe there's like something that like isn't lost actually. Like, I mean, I didn't pull the death card, and maybe that's just because you're not the one doing the dying or whatever, and like, oh my god, knock on wood, right? Like, I really hope that this is speaking more about past energy and not like something that's coming up. And I feel like it is speaking a little bit more about either like just like, hopefully if this reading is resonating with you, like this event has already gone down, and I'm not like predicting something for you, because I don't think we need that in our lives right now. But like, so like this is, let's just call this a past event. So there's this past event, and it just kind of like shook you up a little bit, and you became this warrior for a moment. But to go back to here, maybe sometimes in this Ikiru, there's like a whole part where like these old guys are like getting around and like talking about like, after the man dies, the man with cancer, they're talking about like the man's motives and like why he did what he did, and like they eventually, I think, figure out that, I mean, not to spoil it, you should still watch it, but like I think that maybe sometimes there are meanings in life to senseless things, and it's just kind of beyond our ability to understand the nature of the universe. Kind of like, I think what I'm trying to say in so many words is that, like, for example, I'm agnostic, so I don't really prescribe to anything. Like, for me personally, I don't like sometimes I'm like I feel like I'm channeling, in the sense of like, I'll get an idea and it just feels like it kind of came to me, but I don't know if I like hear a voice that's like an angel that like I connect with, that I'm like, oh, that was definitely Archangel Michael telling me to tell you blah blah blah, right? But who knows? Maybe it literally is like Archangel Michael whispering into my ear to give you these messages or whatever. Like, that's kind of what I'm trying to say here. The subconscious, our psyches, there's a lot we don't know about how things work. And a lot that it could be an illusion. The senselessness or like the meaninglessness could be the illusion, for example. And the Page of Cups just feels like we need to get that back. And I think we need to like just maybe be willing to have hope. Even when it seems like we've been proven like hope shouldn't be a thing that we should have or could have. I think we need to kind of retrieve some of our innocence and our playfulness and our artistic vibes and like our sense of wanting to fall in love. Like, I think it's like not just like I'm alive to be a warrior, but I'm alive to be sensitive and gentle too. And that's just what I really feel like with these two is, like, for example, maybe when our loved ones pass, they're still with us. I don't know. I really don't know. I sometimes think that we just go into a void and it's nothingness and that's it. And I really believe that. Like, that's a possibility, that there's just nothing. But what if there is something? I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say with these two, is that, like, maybe even if this thing that broke our hearts happened, right, and kind of made us lose a little bit of faith, maybe things are not what they seem. And maybe there's something we need to go back and get. And then we got the King of Cups, which I'll conclude with that. And the King of Cups is Bill Murray in Lost in Translation. And I think we're moving from this page to this King energy. And the King is a kind of a master of his emotions. But Lost in Translation, Bill Murray, I mean, this reading has been long, but I think what I want to say about him is that he is a man who has seen it all, right? I mean, like, literally, like, he's a little bit jaded, and he's a little bit, like, kind of over it, and he's a little bit, like, kind of like, what is love? And he, is lost in Translation, like, emotionally, and then he meets Scarlett Johansson, and he has this romantic connection kind of out of nowhere. And I mean, it's like a platonic romantic connection, but I think that goes to show that even, like, love sometimes isn't necessarily, like, conventional or like how we think it's meant to look. Maybe sometimes it's very intimate in an emotional way and not in a physical way. That's very Lost in Translation vibes. And I'm not saying all Cancers are going to find that type of connection. I just feel like the King of Cups is kind of that, like, new beginning with having mastered all of the shit that you've been through, Cancer. Like, that's where you're concluding your journey, is like, after all this, you kind of restore something in you that gives you the chance to kind of, like, be surprised. Like, even though you think you've seen it all and you're jaded and world weary and, like, can't be surprised anymore, someone or something or, like, some circumstance might come into your life that shows you how to open your heart once again, and to show you that there's still more to the story, and that even though your heart was broken, it can heal, and there can be something else to your story that you really weren't expecting. So that is your reading. Wow, very intense. It was a lot. And if you liked it, please like and subscribe. And I'm also offering personal readings, which you can see links below to my site. I'd love to see you there for a one-on-one and connect with you personally. So please let me know, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.